Hola, ¿qué tal? Yo soy José, bienvenidos a un video especial de Coleccionables en Acción, presentado por Yavin 4coleccionables.com. El día de hoy me encuentro en Petaluma, California, en el Rancho Obi Wan, propiedad de Sansweet, el máximo coleccionista de Star Wars en el mundo. Vamos a ver qué nos encontramos.
So, what we have here, the actual museum ends at the end of this building. And so we haven't converted, the back of the barn is obviously still a work in progress. We converted this building right here to our party room that we call Jabba's Palace. And you'll see why in just a moment. We had a gala here about a month ago, a little more than a month ago. We had 160 people. So we had a banquet in there, and we also had a wine tasting. Skywalker Vineyards came by, and 57 people did a wine tasting. It was very fun. So, and come check out Jabba's Palace. In the warmer months, this is where we set up for lunch and for dinner and parties and get-togethers. But it's a little chilly here, so we're gonna have lunch inside the museum today. This was donated by the 501st Legion, the big costuming organization. Yes.
Wow. Yep.
Jar Jar Binks and Carbonite.
So whenever you guys get your fill of pictures and
There's a whole lot more to see. So we have Star Wars fans from all over the world. Come on in. Come on in, folks.
I'm going to give you the official greeting. Some of you I even know from conventions around the world. That's just wonderful. I want to say hello and guten tag and selamat datang and let's see, who did I forget? Buenos dias and howdy mates. Yeah. And my Canadian is totally off. So. Huh?
Somebody from Malaysia.
I said selamat datang.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I spent 3 weeks in Kuala Lumpur. In a past life. But let me give you the while we wait for somebody to escape the Sarlacc pit, the official greeting from the man himself.
Well, hello there.
Oh.
Welcome to Rancho Obi Wan. You'll never find a more splendid hive of fun and thrilling. You've taken your first step into a larger world. Here you shall see things beyond imagination. But your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them. Stretch out with your feelings, but not with your hands. Or you may end up like that poor soul I had to deal with in the Mos Eisley Cantina. Rancho Obi Wan is Obi Wan. Obi Wan. Now that's a name I much prefer to Rancho Ben. I must warn you that a visit here can lead to feelings of intense jealousy, but do not give in to hate. That leads to the dark side. If you're lucky, you also won't give in to a spending spree, even at the Rancho Obi Wan gift shop. Then again, in my experience, there's no such thing as luck. So pay attention to all instructions, follow your guide, and you will experience a galactic, physical, and spiritual reawakening from a certain point of view. And remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Thank you, Minister. The man does exaggerate just a bit. That was the voice of James Arnold Taylor, who in the U.S. version of the Clone Wars did such a wonderful job playing Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then he also hosted a lot of Star Wars weekends and also some celebrations as Obi-Wan Kenobi. And the Obi-Wan Kenobi bust was done live at Celebration 4, the 30th anniversary of Star Wars, by a sculptor named Lawrence Noble. And he's the one responsible for the iconic Yoda's bronze sculpture, which is in front of all of Lucasfilm's headquarters. So it's on the fountain, downtown San Francisco in the Presidio. It's at the Big Rock Ranch entrance of Skywalker Ranch, and it's the newest Lucasfilm facility in Singapore, which if you haven't seen it, Google it, because it's shaped like a Jawa sandcrawler. So, yes, different. And there's one here too. So you'll be seeing it. And all of the posters you see here are from the original trilogy. I don't know if any of you were around for the original trilogy. I was an older fellow at the time, and this was the first poster that was an art poster. But in fact, the first poster when the movie opened in the U.S. on May 25th, 1977, was this blue and white letter poster, because Star Wars only opened on 32 screens in the U.S. And it took a whole month before it massively expanded to 100 screens. So Star Wars was responsible for so many changes in the movie business, in the merchandising business, and we now celebrate Star Wars almost 40 years later, and the whole business has changed because of it. You know, how many screens is Rogue One opening up? And by the way, congratulations to all of you. I had a lot of fun watching your videos, so good job. And who knows, in 20 years, you may be directing episode 37. So, and in these cases here, we have some of the out-of-package action figures. This is the entire vintage line. Wow. And when we were doing the book on the complete action figure collection a couple of years ago, neither we nor Hasbro knew how many there were. And so we went back and forth for a couple of months trying to figure out. We came up with a total of, up to the end of 2012, beginning of 2013, 2,300 separate figures. But between 1978 and 1986, when the vintage figures came out, there were only 114. So there were a few more in the later years, and they still keep coming out. So these are all of the vintage figures, and then we start with the new lines, which started coming out in 1995. If you need to use the bathroom up here, it's the Great Pit of Carcoon, and I highly recommend just going in there sometime, because it's also where we keep 40 years of personal care items, like Star Wars toilet paper. We've got some fan-made embroidered toilet paper, one with a Stormtrooper on it that says Storm Pooper, and one with Yoda on it that says Wipe You Will. Now, there was going to be licensed Star Wars toilet paper from Germany, and they did a licensed paper towels, and the sample came with the licensed toilet paper, and it was Yoda on each sheet of the toilet paper, and they had the ad campaign worked out. Wipe out the dark side, which might work in Europe, but my boss at that point, the vice president of marketing, thought that was not such a great Moving on. We've got an R2 built by U.S. R2 builders that went around on a tour of author's tour for DK Books from the Visual Dictionary. You see this guy. This was the 2014 Guinness Book of Records, and when they declared the Rancho Obi Wan collection the largest in the world. This is the most expensive Star Wars book ever done. It was going to be $5,000. It came down to $3,000. And there were some problems with it. This was an idea by George Lucas. He wanted to show, this is called Frames, and he wanted to show the beauty of the cinematography of the movies. And so I'm going to ask you if you can hold. Give me a second. Yeah, sure. Oh, you can do it.
I can do it.
And you can look over her shoulder. So this gives you an idea of what George wanted. He spent months and months going through printouts of all kinds of frames from the movie and picked about 280 frames from each of the 6 movies. But there were all kinds of problems. And the publisher had problems, and then George didn't like the original paper. And so he did sign a bunch of these, so it's signed by George. It has this beautiful case. Now, I was one of the first to get mine, and I opened it up, and the case was cracked all the way across the top. And I thought, okay, well, that happens in sending. And then I noticed that where the molding changes color, there was a piece of gray putty with a thumbprint and a fingerprint. So clearly, quality control was absent. And what happened was I called the head of publishing, and she said, well, what about the books? And I said, well, I haven't opened them yet. And she said, open them now. And I said, why? And she said, George just got his. He opened the same volume, volume 4, and 16 pages fell out. And it turns out there had been such a problem that George had to pay himself. He came up with a substantial amount of money to get this book done because he wanted to give them as Christmas gifts and things like that. So there were supposed to be 1,138 printed, probably not more than 400 got done. Of those, maybe 75 had to be destroyed. George gave away about 125, about the same number were sold. And if you're still interested, somebody on eBay is still trying to sell it from the first day for $9,999. It never sells. He keeps renewing it. But you can get the smaller version of it with 2 of the images per page in the strings. And it also weighs 30 pounds, so it's good for your weightlifting classes. And I think he may be still sleeping, but it's a slight shock. It doesn't hurt. It just wakes him up. Taking a picture of you guys. So this is where it all started with action figures, and these are all of the carded action figures that came out, the vintage action figures between 1978, because there were none in 1977, there was just an empty box, the early bird kit, 1978 to 1986, and there's 112 on here. And they're guarded by 576 stormtroopers. This was a display put together, built for us by Target. We did a thing for them down in Los Angeles just prior to the world premiere of The Force Awakens. And so they built this and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, but you can find all of the action figures here. There are only 2 carded action figures that didn't fit on here. And these are exactly the same figures, but on droids cards, the A-Wing pilot and Boba Fett. And so we made our choice of what to include and what not. Okay. So collectors like bootleg items, and this is the most famous series. This is from Turkey. They thought they could get away with it because it was Stars War. Stars War. And they left Darth Vader, Driver, Chewbacca, and you all remember the troops that Vader led to invade Hoth, right? The Blue Stars? What? What? Somebody got Cobra Commander mixed up with... And then my favorite is the Imperial Gunner, because of the photo on the card. The Imperial Gunner at the controls of the most powerful weapon in the galaxy, the laser cannon of the Death Star, except it looks amazingly like a 1980s computer calculator.
Solar power.
Yeah, solar power, yeah, no doubt. The Russians didn't bother to paint their bootleg action figures. The Polish shouldn't have bothered to paint their bootleg action figures. And frankly, no offense, guys, but in Mexico, they shouldn't have bothered at all. We know the good bootlegs from Mexico, don't we? 6-year-old girl said, what do you mean floppy disk? That's hard. So I had to explain what a floppy disk was. And then she said, so how many movies could you get on one of those? 1.44 megabytes. I said you couldn't even get a photo on it. So that was 20 years ago. 10 years ago, remember how excited we all were with our huge screen telephones. And in the UK, many Wookiees died to bring you this. I'm so sorry. Now, when Star Wars first came out, the only way you could see it at home, or any of it at home, was Super 8 film. And these were just digests, so 7 or 8 minutes, some of them black and white, some of them color without sound, and these were all over the world. They did them in Germany, Italy, Spain, but that was it, because it wasn't until 1982 that the beta and VHS versions of Star Wars came out, and these were only available for rental unless you slipped the guy behind the counter about $100 to buy them out of stock. So it was another couple of years before the rental was. Okay, who has an 8-track player at home? Anybody? Anybody admit to an 8-track player?
Your brother.
Ah, your brother. Good for you. And then we had laser discs. And CED discs. Anybody remember these? Okay, so these have a record inside instead of the laser disc. And so you put them in the machine. This was IBM and Universal Studios as opposed to everybody else. And they played the movie with a needle, like a record player. Guess how long that lasted?
Yeah.
Not very. Not very. Yeah. And then some of the very first video games for Star Wars came out in Japan. The Namco games. So it's just a big history. Star Wars moves along with everything else. Now, ladies, we're going to see if any of you are Cinderella and can wear any of these irregular choice shoes. These are just wonderful. Not for wearing, but just to look at them. They're incredible. I could just see Daisy Ridley wearing these at the Academy Awards. Over here, the Japanese stuff is some of my favorite. So we have some of the very early Japanese things that were sold in grocery stores. Breadsticks, rice snacks, and they were all so you could get these little premiums. And there are over 100 of these different premiums in different colors and such. This is a switchblade comb. And you could collect Coca-Cola caps. A couple of years ago, a company called Glico did an R2D2 vacuum cleaner, a Roomba vacuum cleaner, which I wish I could get to work. And my favorite new toy, the Space Opera. Okay, so somebody call out a character. Yoda. And they didn't light it originally, but I hired somebody to light it for me and turn it into a piece that I was very excited with, from a piece that wasn't that spectacular. When you take close-up photos, it almost looks like you're on the set of the Falcon. Behind you are our very first, Lucasfilm's very first licensed replica pieces from a company called Icons. And these are called studio scale, and they are the size of the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter that they used in making Star Wars for the close-up models. Over here, this is done by a friend of mine who was a model maker in episodes 2 and 3, used model kits for the vehicles, and built the Death Star tower and surface. A friend of mine named Randy Cooper in Florida, who makes high-end model kits for people to assemble. Of course, I can't assemble, so Randy occasionally will sell one of his assembled pieces. These are brilliant. The skill that goes into something like that is really incredible. Behind Salacious Crumb is an engineering drawing from production of the full-size land speeder with the original hot chocolate stains or really lousy coffee. I'm not quite sure what that was. Over here, in this case, we've got pieces of the original Death Star, both surface pieces and trench side pieces. And under that, from a friend in Mexico, we've got tin and aluminum plate vehicles. I don't know how this guy makes these. They're pretty incredible. And excuse me, over there, that's his masterwork, the aluminum Falcon. So the Emperor was right. There was an Yoda. All the original Yodas have deteriorated. They were made of latex. This Yoda, the hard parts, were all made from the original molds from the late 70s. So the head, the hands, the feet, the cane, and the pan flute are all the exact dimensions, and they are from the molds of the latex Yoda. The rest of the body needs to be a little bigger, but those parts are all. And this is a latex piece from episode 1, the Gorg, or the sewer frog, that got Jar Jar into trouble when he, pulled it off the Gorg monger's umbrella there, and one of them ended up in Sebulba's slop. Here's another display. This is our Day of the Dead display in homage to Obi-Wan Kenobi. Lots of wonderful, wonderful pieces. If this looks like something you saw in the opening of the Olympics, note that it is Darth Vader. So it's Vader Redentor, not Christo Redentor. And we've got all kinds of other Day of the Dead Sugar Skull candles, and this, I don't know what a shoe is doing there, but these are 2 originally hand-painted storyboards from Star Wars by Joe Johnston. In this case, Yves Saint Laurent Cosmetics. Why? I don't know, but they did an episode 1 promotion. You couldn't even find this stuff. I thought when I heard about it they wanted women to put white faces on with red lipstick, but no, that was not the case. Limoges boxes. This is a replica. This is sterling silver replica of Leia's necklace, made by the same company that made it for Star Wars, a Finnish jewelry company. This is a high-end Swarovski beaded crystal purse. One of the reasons why FAO went bankrupt, because they were trying to sell 75 of them at $2,300 a piece. I think they sold 5, and then they went to 80% off. Same thing, the Robert Tonner, beautiful porcelain doll, many layers of ladies' clothing, no instructions, no photos. And then we have the creepy Madame Alexander dolls. I call creepy because you touch them and they don't stop blinking. They keep blinking for like hours. It's like an episode of The Twilight Zone. I much prefer, this is a Finnish sculptor, and she did Luke, Leia, and Han as My Little Ponies, a little crossover, and perhaps fitting for the characters, fan-made Bratz dolls of Anakin and Amidala. So, this is original fabric, this beautiful embroidered fabric from Amidala's meadow gown from episode 2. This is the scene in which she and Anakin roll in the grass and pledge love to each other while discussing politics, and George made the scene even more romantic by adding flying pink shacks or pigs in the background. It just really added to that romantic feeling. I don't know. Down here we've got some great ceramics from Japan from the 80s, including the C-3PO Scotch tape dispenser, the toothbrush holder, the soap dish, and Luke on a Tauntaun is a teapot. Down here, the Millennium Falcon, there's a metal Millennium Falcon. It's a tool of a certain kind of artist. Very good. It's a tattoo machine. And so you hook up the needle, the ink, and the electricity. A George Lucas paper bag puppet, Fandango puppet, and from Haight-Ashbury, 3 hand blown glass bubble blowing pipes. Bubble blowing. Oh, absolutely. You can tell there's nothing else in there but bubble blowing. Among the first 2 objects ever produced for Star Wars was the Chewbacca mug and the R2-D2 cookie jar, because that's what George said. Those are the only 2 things he thought about when I interviewed him for my first book. I said, "Did you think about merchandise while you were writing the script?" And he said, "Well, I thought about a Chewbacca mug because coffee mugs with dogs on them were very popular and still are, and I based Chewie on my dog Indiana. I don't know why he didn't use that name, but and 3P and R2 as a cookie jar because Ralph sort of developed him as a barrel shape." So, welcome to the Tantive, or Tantive, or however you pronounce it. I just want to warn you that sometimes we get Imperial interference. So let me handle it. I'm used to it. I am a Jedi. Come on up. So this hardware was originally built by R2 builders for Celebration 4. It's a track rod, it's a track.
Wow.
And you can see, yes, watch your head, troopers. So you can see some of the big figures from
So we're just about to execute the Wookiee, and he says, "You can't kill me today, it's Life Day." Life Day. I don't even know what that is, do you?
Please tell me you executed him anyway.
Oh yeah, we killed him, that's for sure. I mean, he was just... You.
Yeah?
You in Rebel Starship Corridor 1138. What are you doing there?
Well, I'm just showing these
We'll need
nice...
to see some identification.
You don't need to see our identification.
We don't need to see their identification. What about the guests?
These aren't the guests you're looking for.
These aren't the guests we're looking for.
We can continue the tour.
We can let them through now.
Thanks, bud.
Move along.
Yeah.
Move along.
Please watch your step. Watch your step.
Yeah.
Literally.
Literally. Hi.
Okay, so let me explain some of the things in here, and we're going to have lunch in about 15 minutes. It's celebration 2 years in a row. This year is Hodor, last year as Darth Malgus, that big guy over there. And a Zap electric scooter that goes 13 miles an hour that I have fallen off at least 13 times, which is why it's up there and unplugged, and made to look like a staff or a battle droid flying platform from episode 1. And the best golf bags ever made, 2 Japanese Bridgestone Star Wars golf bags. Yeah, they're pretty awesome. Another Red Wagon Parade piece. This is the Jawa Sandcrawler. Actually, the top comes off and a kid can ride in it. This is a colleague of mine at Lucasfilm in the video department, Kevin Yost. And Kevin wore this at an ILM Halloween contest and won first prize with his then 7-year-old son walking in front of him in his photo. And he contributed to us. So the giant Darth Vader head in the back is one of the reasons Rancho Obi Wan exists for 5 years as a non-profit museum. I'm just looking towards retirement at Lucasfilm, and I had so much stuff back here, including that because in 2008, Toys R Us in their main store called Lucasfilm Licensing and said, "We've got this giant Darth Vader head, and we have no use for it. Do you want it for free?" And of course, licensing said no. And somebody said, "Well, ask Steve if he wants it." And in my memory, because I had seen it, it was 4 feet tall, made of 2-inch thick foam core. Well, it's about 10 feet tall, weighs 800 pounds, has steel through the middle of it, and so we had to build a special crate and truck across it. Freebie came $5,000. I also paid for corridor, the Tontine corridor, for the R2 builders. They trucked it up here, so we had that. We had hundreds of boxes and 80 years of chicken souls in here. So that's when we made the decision. I was looking towards retirement at Lucasfilm. In 2010, we decided to turn this into a nonprofit and enable people to come and visit. The Clone Wars characters, there's 2 sets of these. One set's in Singapore. This was another thing Lucasfilm put in storage. They thought that the licensing department was paying for it and had taken them over, marketing did, until they found out that no, they got a storage bill for 18 months of storage, and they said, we either have to destroy them or ask Steve if he wants it. This big piece here was built for Lucasfilm in 2011 as a piece to display a trailer for the Blu-ray discs, and they actually recut. They recut the end of Star Wars for this one-time only Comic-Con showing, and the only place you can see it is here.
The Death Star is a fantastic collection of exotic technology. It's much more complicated than inside of a massive battleship. Rooms and corridors and different problems. The Death Star surface lasers out a couple different sizes. There's a normally some kind of transition reaction. There's a lot of different cannons and trenches and exhaust pipes.
And a chair from the cabin of the Alderaan cruiser at the end of Episode 3, the ship that took Obi Wan, Bail Organa, and Yoda back to Mars. And that was me as an Ewok. So again, congratulations to all of you on your films. I really enjoyed them. And it's wonderful to see that we're giving people from all over the world a chance to enter these contests and show your creativity. Thank you.
Thanks.
What is that? The wreck from Tijuana with the gaudiest frame. Anybody like your Disney mix-up? So we have The Lion King and The Force Awakens over here. This is a crew uniform from Pop, from the Norwegian unit. This was actually worn by the director of photography, Jeff Clobber. He did have boots. They didn't come with the outfit. So these were done by Disney artists, and they were done for a charity, the J.J. Abrams supports, a UNICEF charity. And so not too politically correct, Mickey Mouse Dragon. nice story. Just great pieces. And these were all done from the collector's track. They had artists actually keep cases, and this is looking at the hologram art. This is absolutely amazing. That's two robots. Just beautiful pieces. This is Russell Chang, who was an artist on the Clone Wars, and this is the Clone Wars Bounty Hunters. This is an original piece. A friend of mine from Australia, Mark Ratz, who's a artist. The gray is done by another friend of mine from Australia. Pieces from all over the world. The Ewok mask actually was made out of parchment stored in a workshop, but it was almost exactly like the background Ewok mask. So it's made of the same fur, the faceplate, the ears, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, all pieces. And then you have the world's, probably the world's only Star Wars scrimshaw. Look, sir, droids.
Pues esto fue todo, espero que les haya gustado este video tanto como a mí me gustó el museo de Rancho Obi Wan. Nos vemos en el próximo video, no dejen de visitar nuestra página de internet en www.yavin4coleccionables.com. Síganos en Facebook, en Twitter, en Instagram y may the force be with you.